Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of the Centurus Knowledge Series. Today, we're pleased to present how to share Power BI datasets, Dataflows, and certified datasets. We'll be doing a demo and discussion of how to extend enterprise sharing from Power BI Desktop. Today's agenda, after we do a couple of brief introductions, we'll get into the meat of the presentation, describing what exactly data flows are and what their role is in the organization and Microsoft's plans for them. Talk a little bit about shared and certified data sets towards the end. After that, for those of you who are unfamiliar, we'll do a brief Centurus overview, talk about some great additional and almost entirely free resources. And then at the end, stick around as we'll be getting into the aforementioned question and answer. Our presenters today, I'm very pleased to be joined today by Andy Kinnear. He is a certified Microsoft BI architect and developer in excess of 20 years of experience doing software development and BI application development. He's made regular appearances at the Power Platform World Tour events over the years and also serves as an assistant organizer of the New Jersey and New York branch of the Power BI user group. So we're thrilled to have him here with us today presenting on this topic. My name is Mike Weinhauer. I wear several hats here, one of them being the MC for our webinars and events. So before we get into the presentation, we like to get a finger on the pulse of our audience. So I've got a couple of polls to share with you here. First of all, what is your role using Power BI in your organization? So I've displayed the poll out here for you. If you can all go ahead and vote. Are you an ETL, ELT developer? Are you a Power BI power user? Are you a consumer of data? Or are you a manager / executive? All right, so we are going to close that out and I'll share the results with you. So we got a lot of power users out there, not too surprising, but a fifth of you are managers, executives, and a third are ETL, ELT developers. So this has a little something kind of for all of you guys. So hopefully you find this valuable. I'm going to move along to the next poll, and that is, what version of Power BI do you use? So there's, hopefully you're aware of this, there's Power BI Desktop, which is the free, local download, and then there's the next level is Power BI Pro, and then Power BI Premium, which is the more enterprise level. All right, close and share. So it looks like about 2/3 of you using Power BI Pro, good 25% or so using Premium, and then a full half are using just the basic version. So this is great. Those of you who are in those various tiers, desktop and pro and premium, you may be wondering what are some of the differences there, and we'll touch upon that briefly. We do have other resources where we get into that, and that's one of the things we help our clients with. But thanks for weighing in there. And then moving on to the next slide here, we'll get into the heart of the presentation, and I'll hand the floor over to Andy. Andy, go ahead.
We want to understand why Microsoft is adding these features to the tool set. What is the void that needs filling? And we'll talk about some of the objects that are in play here and the features that they've added. And we'll start with looking at what a data set is. So in Microsoft Power BI, you have the ability to bring data into Power BI, do some transformations on it, create a data model with relationships and calculated measures, and in the end, you're producing a data cube. So if you've heard the term cube in the past, many production environments have data cubes that have been built by the IT department and then put into a production environment. Here, Microsoft is using the same exact technology as analysis services cubes and has made it part of the Power BI desktop solution. So it is, when you create a Power BI file, a PBIX file, the data is married to the report that you're developing as well. So analysts can download the free version, have it on your desktop, bring the data in. In the background, you're creating a cube when you do all your transformations and calculated measures and whatnot. And then you create a report or a number of reports based on that, and it's for your use. It's self-service BI. Now, if you take that and you publish up to Power BI Service, which is the Power BI portal that allows you to share your reports and your data sets, then once you publish that up, Power BI will create, the visuals will be separated out as a report, and the cube or model gets separated out as a data set. All right, so it is still connected with this one, but there's a slight degree of separation. If I wanted now to go in and create a new Power BI report, I could create a new report and connect into this existing data set. All right, so it's been shareable at this point. It's been shareable in the workspace, or at least up to very recently, it's been shareable within the workspace that you publish to, but only within that workspace. Okay, and the enterprise model, so enterprise BI, which has been going on for years, you have an enterprise environment where the cube is totally separate from the front end tools. And take a look at this picture here. This graphic shows what a typical, let's say, cloud environment looks like for enterprise level BI. You're grabbing data from different sources, might even be streaming data that you're pulling in. The data goes down into a data lake storage. And then within the data lake itself, there are transformations that run over the data. You're adding new fields, you're calculating new fields. And once that processing is finishing, you can move it off into, let's say, an Azure SQL database, or Azure SQL data warehouse. And then from there down into, say, an Azure Analysis Services Cube. Again, the same technology that's in Microsoft, but now it is published up to the cloud, and it's developed using Visual Studio instead of Power BI. And it gets the stamp of approval from the organization. This is all done by the IT department, by developers that know all these different coding technologies. And one of the issues with enterprise level BI is if you have a request, I now have the cube's great, I'm really doing well with it, but I need 3 new fields. You put in a request and it sits there for a month, right? It gets approved, it gets put in for the next release, but you have to wait. And you have to wait. You're dependent upon the IT department. So that's the 3 ways of looking at data sets and cubes, right? A cube is typically set off in its enterprise environment. Data sets are created when you publish up a desktop, Power BI desktop to Power BI service. But to make sure everyone understands, it is the same technology under the covers.
So it's worth saying that the technology there is that it's a columnar tabular model, like a high performance analysis services structure, right, Andy? You know, it's just different permutations of it, local or in the cloud.
Yes, a cube is really a data store that's created to be very efficient. So it's in memory, it's compressed data, and it allows you to create calculated measures and relationships that complete out a model that can be used in a reporting environment. So if you wanted to create if you want to compare current month against prior month, there's calculated measures that will work during runtime to handle that type of aggregation and comparison. And then if you were to slice it on something different, those calculated measures would recalculate in real time and produce the results needed. So that's the basic benefit of having your data in cubes, is the speed and the flexibility to look at the current context of what you're reporting on. Self-service BI. So the idea behind this with Power BI is that analysts can create their own models and are not dependent upon the IT department to access data. All right. Typically, business analysts or power users that that use Power BI, they get very good at what they do. They know how to use the tool. You don't need to have a degree in computer science to build your own models. The tool is made so that you can use bring the data in, do transformations on it, create calculations in DAX, which is a programming language, but it's more simplified. It's very similar to Excel, which a lot of analysts are used to. So it is something that analysts will be able to pick up fairly quickly and learn how to use. So it's simplified in the sense that you don't need that computer science degree to do it. And then Power BI Service allows for a means for analysts to share their reports and models. And so now this is the first step of getting away from self-service. Now, if self-service would bring in data in, and now you're building the models that you want, and you can do analytics on it and help your company make better business decisions. But now you've done great work. You've created a model that's pretty impressive, and everyone's proud of you for doing so. And the first question to ask is, can you share that with this department over here, or can you share that with your coworkers in this area? So it's getting away from self-service BI, but it's also a means where you're saying, all right, there's some good work done here. We need to be able to have the rest of the organization benefit from it. But what are some of the resulting issues then that can come about? Analysts create useful data sets for the organization, but they were only being used departmentally or individually. There are two phases to Power BI dataset development. When you bring data in, you can do transformations at the table level, which is in Power Query Editor. You can split columns, you can merge and append tables, you can do a lot of good ETL type stuff. An ETL being extract, transform, and load. So you're doing that. You're extracting the data, or actually ingesting the data, transforming it, and then when you're done with Power Query Editor, you close it and apply, and it goes into the Power BI model, which allows you to create relationships and allows you to create calculated measures, and you can do some new columns there too as well with DAX. But there are two phases here in doing the data transformation process to create a single data set. So one of the things that Microsoft decided they could do is you could create a process that will allow saving and sharing of the data after the Power Query process. Right now, that doesn't exist in Power BI. You go into Power Query Editor, you click Save and Apply, and it goes into the model, and there is no, the tables that you were working on haven't been saved to your local environment. They go into the model, and the model gets saved. No one can access those tables that you worked on. So one of the things is to give a process so that you can save and share that data. And then also have a process to share data sets across the organization. So now that you have the ability to create a data set from a data flow, and we'll get more into that, then you want to be able to have other departments work with the data itself. So we're going to talk about that. And when that happens, you're getting away from the production level environment, right? So production level environment, you are looking to say, here's the data that we consider to be the single source of truth, right? And you're going to come in here and get that data. So now we need something, not to the same level as a production level environment, but something that says that what we're working on has the confidence of the organization as being the correct data to use. And we'll show you that with the certification process. I'm going to quickly go into Power BI to show what Power Query Editor is. If you're not familiar with Power BI at this point, you have data ingested already over here and a model that's built. But if I go into Edit Queries, that's going to open up Power Query Editor. This is all part of Power BI Desktop. And it's a tool that allows you to do data transformations. As you can see up top here, and even on the home row, you have the ability to remove columns. You can use first row as headers, very useful with Excel. You can change the data type of the columns. You can merge some of these, merge the queries, but you're merging tables in essence over here that you have available. And then there's a transform tab where you can do a whole host of other types of transforms, split columns based on a certain value, a lot of the math and structuring of the data as well. And then once you're finished with that, this is the part where you click and apply. I'm just going to click close here, but it goes back into the model and it adds those changes into the data model. And then to distinguish itself from the second part, this is what a data model looks like, right? So I'm in the model view. I'm back here. I create the relationships in the model view. I can go to the table view, but we're still in the data model, which is a table view of the data model. And you can create measures, new columns. You can do all sorts of processing in here too, but mostly it's calculated measures. I want to compare this month to date with the same period last year, and I can create a calculated measure that does that and look at the two values side by side. That's the power of the data model itself. So what Microsoft wanted to do was, how can we take out the Power Query Editor and give it to you as a cloud platform, separate it from Power BI, and allow you to save the data after the Power Query process so that it can be used by other people within your organization. So this Dataflows allows us to bridge the gap between enterprise and self-service Power BI. It allows the analyst or power user of Power BI to actually create some data flows, which are ETL processes. Extract them, transform them, and then load them. So you're extracting different data sources, databases, files. You could get files from SharePoint and bring them into Power Query Editor tool. And then you can do your transformations just like you did in Power BI. But when the Power Query Editor process is finished, you click refresh and it loads the data into your cloud storage. Now, where is this cloud storage? Okay, this is part of your Power BI service that you have, either Power BI Pro or Power BI Premium. Data flows, you can create data flows in both. And they each have their own memory limits for saving out data. And in particular, it's cloud storage. Underneath the covers, you're using Azure Data Lake storage, but it is your own part of your Power BI subscription that you're using to store that data. Okay, and those data flows, when you create a data flow, let's say it produces 10 tables. Right? I've got 10 tables. I've cleansed and conformed the data. It's ready to go in tabular form, and it's saved out to the data lake. Now, another person can come along and say, that's great. I need 3 of those tables, and I have 5 tables of my own that I'm going to pull in, and I'm going to create my own data flow out of that. So what it does allows you to link to an existing data flow and create another data flow. And in this way, an organization can help build out an ETL process for sort of the self-service Power BI group, if you will. Not the production level environment, but this is my analysts who are creating now data flows. Again, analysts have done some great work with stuff, and now they need ability to share this across the organization. So they can do that in the form of data flows that persist data in the cloud and then allow other developers, analysts to come in and create their own data flows and reuse, if they have the access security for it, reuse the data that's already been out there. And then these data flows can be used as a source into Power BI to create a data set. So when you open up Power BI, you pull it in, it looks like a database. You'll see a list of tables and you say, I want these 3 tables, and pull them in. And now you create your Power BI report and create a resulting data set when you publish up to service. So just to recap, Power Query Editor in the cloud and separated from Power BI. Okay, so it's taking that element of Power BI and moving it off as a separate application and making it available in Power BI service. Data flows extract data from the sources and save data in the cloud. They persist it up there. They allow for data transformations and mashups, and they can be used by others as seeds into a new data flow. Okay, so that's the reason behind it. Now, why don't we go take a look and do it ourselves? So I'm going to come over to my Power BI environment here. I've got this workspace all set to go. And if I go to data flows here, I can see I've got a data flow already created. All right, so this is 100% ready to go. We're going to use that to save a little time in certain areas. But let's create that from scratch. All right, so I'm going to go to the create button here, data flow. All right, and again, we're in a cloud environment, so it's open up. This application is totally up in your portal, your Power BI portal. And a few options here. What we're going to do is create a new entity or add new entities, essentially create a new data flow. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw data from an Azure SQL database. That one ready to go here. Okay, and I put in my credentials before, so it's memorized that. And click next. Okay, and now you can see here we're connected to a database just as you would with Power BI. And we're gonna pull in a few, this is the AdventureWorks sample database. And we'll pull in a handful of tables here. We'll bring in the full product category. And internet sales will be our fact table. And we're just gonna click transform. And Right now, it's bringing that data into the environment. And as you'll see, this is if you're used to Power Query Editor, this is the same functionality. Doesn't have 100% of the same functionality. It is based on the language M, the same M language that's in Power Query Editor and Power BI. So if they're as they build out this tool, it's going to add more and more functionality to it till it is the same as the one in Power BI. But it does work on M language, and if you have to, you can always copy code from Power Query Editor in Power BI and pull it up in here if you find that some of the features aren't there yet. So with this, we have the same applied steps over here on the right. You have the queries over here on the left, and you can see for each table as we go. And a couple of things we'll do out of the box here. Just wait for dim customer to show up. All right, we'll create a full name field just by clicking away. So I'm highlighting 3 fields here. I'll go to transform columns and manage columns. No, what are they? Columns, excuse me. And separator will make space, and we'll call this full name. Click OK. So in the course of a few clicks, we're doing what a SQL developer might have to write a SQL query to do to derive a column, and we now have a full name field in our customer. That's the whole point of making an ETL tool available to data analysts and power users, people that aren't necessarily SQL coders. Give them the opportunity to build out an ETL package with clicks and the functions up here in the GUI. All right, so coming back here, we're gonna mash up. We're gonna get some more data now, and instead of database, we're gonna go to a SharePoint folder, and let me grab that URL. All right, so it's gonna be a Microsoft account. Okay, next. And so now it's grabbing this file off the web. It's an item budget file. So if you're used to budgeting, a lot of times with budgets, they'll be done in Excel. They want to have months across the top. And what we've done here is we've made the AdventureWorks category field as the categories for budgets. So a particular budget in a particular year, this would be 2013 data. And it would have what they're expecting their sales to be for each category in here. All right, so once that's in there, as you can see, it's bringing it in now. And there's a few steps to bring in an Excel file. In this particular case, we want to get this file in, and you click OK. And if you are familiar with bringing in SharePoint folder files with Power Query Editor, it's undergoing the same process. It's going to bring everything in as a binary, and it's going to allow me to expand on that binary, and then it eventually starts to look like the Excel process here. All right, so I click binary, and you can see over here as we do each click, the applied steps is showing a new step. This will pop up in a second, and each time M is a sequential language, so as it brings it in, it adds a new step to it, and you can always go and delete that step, go back to another, and that's how you would go about in terms of building out what's underneath the covers. So underneath the covers is, if I go to the advanced editor, this is what the M language looks like if you were to program it directly, and the UI is now building that for us. Okay, and another step here we need to expand this table out. And it's going to show us the columns in this. It's the next step. And so now it should start to look like what you would want, what we saw back in the Excel file itself. So one of the things I noticed right away is that the first row here is my columns. And if I wanted to go up and say use first row as headers, right? Nice little nifty thing, especially when you're bringing in Excel. So I'll put that, and again, we're bringing our steps over here, promoted headers. And for this particular guy, when we start to do analytics, you don't want to have a matrix style format here. You want to put this in a tabular style format. In other words, you want accessories to have 12 rows, January through December, and the amounts in a single column so that we can refer to that column and then also slice it on a date dimension and a category dimension here. So we need to unpivot these rows. And again, Power Query Editor makes this very simple. I have to first, let's get rid of some extraneous columns here. Move columns. Remove this column. And if you've ever done unpivot in SQL Server using SQL code, it's a little bit of a tricky business to do it. Here, it's unpivot columns, and it does it for you. All right, so the GUI is interacting with the code behind the scenes to create the M language, and here we have an unpivoted table. All right, and so right away, I'm gonna rename this column short month, and rename this to budget. And one other thing that we could do here is right now, we know this is 2013 and we have the months here, but in order to hook it into a date dimension, we're gonna have to have a key that shows the first of the month. So I want a date key in the format of YYYYMMDD for each one of these months. So I can go here, I'm gonna add a column, I'm gonna add a conditional column and just show how that works. So short month here equals January. And then you go over and you put in 2013-01-01, and you keep going through this. So I can go in and do this for February and on down. That's why I've saved the other workflow at this point to move things along, but we are going to do this one here. Let's do February. So at least I can close this accurately. Okay. And again, we've had these steps here as it goes through, all sequentially created, one on top of the other. This step makes no sense here because the columns haven't been unpivoted yet. And that's why it has this sequential processing here. As you can see, for those 2 months, we actually have the date key here. It's going to allow me to connect to the date dimension. And we have accessories. It's going to allow me to connect to the category dimension. And then with the columns here, we have all the values in a single column called budget. Now I'm going to cancel out of here. I could save it and close it and then refresh the data, but cancel out. We do have that data set fully cleaned out, fully developed right here. Okay, so once that data flow is created, I'm sorry if I inadvertently called it a data set. I meant to say data flow, right? This is a data flow. And with this data flow, the data has been refreshed and it is in our cloud environment as tables. So if I come over to Power BI at this point, I'm going to go to Get Data, and I'm signed in with my account. And when Get Data pops up, it's going to allow me to see different sources as normal. If I go to Power Platform and Data Flows and click Connect, it's going to check all of the workflow, all of the workspaces that I have access to, and check the data flows that are available to me, and then produce them in this. So I have one data flow, and if I click here, you can see data flow webinar 100, and it's got the tables that I'm interested in. Now, instead of importing them at this point and save a few minutes, we're going to go directly to one where I've imported them already. Okay, so you can see here, fact budget, we have our date key, our short month, and then we have fact internet sales, where we have sales amount in here. And all of this has, when I brought the data in, I was able to create those relationships. So the date key here in fact budget now points up to the date key in the date dimension. Category goes directly to DIM product category. If you notice that fact internet sales has a product key, so it's a relationship to product, which has a many-to-one relationship to product category, which has a product subcategory, and that has a many-to-one relationship to product category. So the purpose of mashing your data together with this tool is so that you can do analytics with it. And if I come here, I'm going to, first I want to see my sales amount. Now I'll put that into, okay, that's the visual I want. And if I was to take short month here, and no, I'm going to go with dim date dimension, because I have date dimension connected to both of my fact tables. So I'm going to put in English month name. Okay, and you can see here, January through December, this is the amounts that we made. Now I want to see, I've budgeted certain amounts for this data, so I want to see what the budget itself is going to produce. Drag that on here. Now I can see the sales as compared to the budget, right? Classic example in retail technology. So you can see here, the budget is a little higher than the sales. We weren't doing too well in the beginning of the year. Started to catch up as the year went on, where the sales started to eclipse the actual budget amounts. And because we have mashed up the product category, I can come in here and drag over product category, make a slicer out of that. And now if I want to see just bikes, right, I've got a slicer on both the budget and the actual sales. So you remember, as the spreadsheet allowed someone to put in a budget at the category level, and you can see we're looking at amounts of close to $1 million. So 1.2 is the budget, 800,000. If I look at clothing now, it slices both of them. So now both of them are much lower in terms of numbers, 27,000 sales budget, very close at this point. But I am slicing across both fact tables because we brought in data from two different sources, mashed them up together, made useful foreign keys out of them, and then once I have that, the analytics becomes drag and drop, filter on need, and I guess components hasn't sold anything. But in this particular case, you can see the value of having data brought together from different sources, and now I can do analysis against both at the same time. So let's take this guy and we'll save it. And we're going to publish it up to that same workspace. So now we're in Power BI Desktop, and we use the Dataflow to come in and create a model within Power BI Desktop. Now I'm going to publish this up to Power BI Service. And when it goes up to Service, okay, success. So now it's up in service. I go over here. I want to see my reports. Okay, so I have the report up here. Take a quick look at that. Okay. And if I go back to my workspace, I now have a data set that's been published up as well. So that's the separation. We have the report and the data set as separate technologies. So now if I want to come into Power BI, again, get data. All right, so I could be a different user now, but I have access to that workspace. And if I go to Power Platform, I now want to see my Power BI data sets that I have available. And I can come in here and make use of that same model. Right? So the model is now more advanced than a data flow. Data flow you can't connect to create reports. You can connect to a data flow to pull data in. But now as I connect to this model, this is a live connect link to an existing published model. So if I have those calculated measures that we talked about in there, say prior month calculations, then I'll be able to use it. But watch what happens here on the left. Okay, the table view and the model view disappear. All right, I don't have the ability to change this model. I am using a published model up in my service. All right, so I'm gonna just do a quick, let's say, subcategory. Come down here. If I go to fact internet sales, sales amount again, create a quick visual. Okay, now I'm gonna save this as something different. I'll call this 1,000. So now I'm reusing a data set, and that's a good thing. If you constantly pull in the same data and then publish up to Power BI, you're creating data set after data set. And because it takes up space, it may cost you more money. If you have a pro license, you have a limited amount of space. If you have premium, even though you have much more space, it is still limited. And if you have a lot of people publishing up, you're now taking valuable resources. So in this case, we're utilizing the same space, utilizing the same same data set, and then publishing back here. I'm going to publish back up to the same workspace with a different report. Okay, so if I come back in here, I now look at reports, and I've got 2 of them, right? And I have 2 of them, but I only have 1 data set. And so now much more efficient use of existing data that's out there. Now, one of the things that Microsoft recently opened up was allowed you to share these data sets, not just within the workspace, but across multiple workspaces. People have said, the organization said, this is great, we want the operations department to see it too. And how can we get that to happen? You don't want everyone in operations to be in your workspace. You might have confidential stuff in the workspace itself, but you want them to see this particular model. So how do we go about doing that? And there's an administration portion of this that allows you to, right now I'm a Power BI admin, and as I come in here, I can go to settings and then the admin portal. And within that admin portal, some of the new things that we're talking about, I'll go back to the slides just for this. Okay, the shared and certified data sets. So if I come in here, I now have this ability here, and this is by default, it's enabled, which is new. So data sets now can be used across the organization, entire organization. You can set it up so that only certain groups will have that ability. So it gives you some governance over who has the ability to share those data sets. But for the most part, and as we have it here, is the entire organization can see, can share those data sets. If we come down here, the other part of this is going to be the certification process. And you can allow certain people to stamp a data set as certified, meaning the organization has tested it and it looks good, and I trust Andy Kinnear to go and be one of the certifiers. If he's done his testing process and he validates the data and everything looks good, we're going to allow him to be a certifier, tag a data set as certified. And I am part of the Power BI Certifiers group, which is an Azure Active Directory group, and my name is one of the members in this group. So I'm allowed to do it, but the rest of the organization doesn't, or whoever's in this group is allowed to do it. That's the admin piece that's been added here, both for sharing data sets and for certifying data sets. So let's take a look at that. All right, so shared data sets allow data sets to be used in Power BI Desktop and published to a different workspace. The data set is not recreated in a new workspace. It has a link in a new workspace that points back to the published data set. So once again, we're not constantly pushing new data in to create new data sets. when we already have a good clean model out there. All right, and that does save space and compute power in your Power BI service subscription. All right, so the shared dataset demo is now, if I want to take this report, let's save it as something else. All right, let's call this 2000. Okay, and now I'm going to publish this to a different workspace. Dataflows and certified datasets 2. So as this goes up, and it's very quick because the data is already there. Now I come into my workspace here. This is the second one. And if I click on datasets, oh, there it is, the data flow model. That's the same one. You can see there's a little chain link here. If I go back to the other one, and I look at datasets, this is my data flow model 100. There's no little chain icon here. What the chain is signifying is that it is a linked data set. It is linked from another workspace. So you're allowed to publish up now into other environments. So it allows you to share across the organization. And now if I'm gonna do that, I wanna know, are these data sets, which ones of these are good? Which ones of them are something that's ready to go? I might create a data set that's in test mode, and I publish it up to my workspace, and it's not finished, but I wanted to publish up, see where I'm at, see how it reacts with the system, but it's not ready to go. And I don't have any way of telling anyone else in the organization whether or not that data set is useful or is accurate. All right, so if I come back to my model here, right, and we can come down this way into the data set, and I got the ellipses here that I can go into and go into settings. And since I am a certifier, I do have this endorsement here available to me, and it gives me 3 different options. So it always goes up as default, right? Which means that it's just out there, and if you want to use it, then you're going to have to trust that you know what's going on with this data set and that it's ready to use. But there's nothing from the organization that is that it's good. So we kind of look at it 3 ways here: default, spot luck, right? Good luck. We're not saying it's accurate. We're saying it's out there, it's being used, but it might not be finished, might not be validated. Anyone can promote their own data sets. So if you go in, if you create a data set, then you can promote it. You can click the promoted option that's in here, and it will go up, and it gives some semblance of confidence that someone, you know, that he's not an organizational certifier, but he's been working with Power BI data sets and has a good model out there, and I have enough confidence when he's clicked promoted on it that I could use it as well. And then the last piece here is certified. Certified says that only certified administrators can attach this level. So every organization can have a different process. There's not a process in place that says it must go through this type of validation, it must be tested and user tested. It's basically saying, all right, for this organization, I'm going to trust you to stamp it as certified. And some organizations will have an elaborate process for that. Some organizations will be smaller and say, you know what, if Kinnear knows what to do and he certifies, that's good for me. All right, but it's some level of governance in the Power BI process that allows you to do it. So I click apply, and now what I'm going to do is go into Power BI again. I'm going to go to get data. So I'm back in Power BI desktop now. And I'm going to go to get data, choose Power Platform. And now when I have a data set and I click connect, okay, now you can see that data set now is showing up with the endorsement value here, certified. And if other data sets were promoted, you might want to say, okay, this person's data set is pretty good and he's clicked promoted on it. I feel comfortable about using that. The others here, who knows, right? Who knows what you're getting? And that's the one way that they've put into place now is this process of both sharing the data sets and then giving some level of governance to say this is something the organization has approved, or this is something that the particular data set developer has approved, so that you can have a certain confidence working with those data sets. Okay, and that concludes our presentation.
Thanks, Andy. That's really fascinating stuff. Stick around for the questions, guys. We got a lot of great questions. And if you have a second to look at the questions while we're sort of flipping through these about Centurus slides, then we'll get to the Q&A at the end. But as you can see, the pendulum sort of swings in the BI world, and many of you online here come from our Cognos background where everything was really centralized. And then tools like Power BI and Tableau came along as a response to that. But then the challenge with those tools was doing everything in the desktop and having multiple versions of the truth and different copies of data sets and stuff like that. So we're really seeing a move by organizations like Microsoft to find that happy medium between the chaos, the wild, wild west, where everything's on people's desktops and or replicated infinitely in the cloud, and the tightly controlled, with the challenges around agility and things like that organizations complain about. And the data flows really provide this kind of happy medium where you have the power and the flexibility of all the things you can do in Power BI desktop by the way of transformations and modeling, but you get the nice governance and certification and reuse and all the good things that come with that in the form of leveraging Power BI service certified data sets and Power Query in the cloud. So hopefully you were able to follow along with that while Andy gave us some great demonstrations there. You may feel a little daunted by some of this because it does get complex, and we can help you in many different ways, whether that's our comprehensive Power BI training offerings, including transforming data on Power BI that we're offering it just at the end of this month here. If you're trying to move your organization from that desktop wild, wild west sort of paradigm to more of an enterprise scale, we can help you get on the path to that more efficient, accurate, shareable dashboard type reporting. Or if you just need help with a specific problem, we can offer you a bucket of hours and that you can allocate however you want to. Couple quick slides about Centurus, if you want to move to the next slide, Andy. We are the authority in business intelligence. We focus exclusively on business intelligence, and we have a depth of knowledge across the entire BI stack. If you go to the next slide, our clients know us for bridging the gap between disparate data sources and business and IT and business users. We deliver solutions that give you access to reliable analysis-ready data across your organization, enabling you to quickly and easily get answers at the point of impact in the form of the decisions you make and the actions you take. On the next slide, you can see that we offer a full spectrum of BI services. Our consultants are leading experts in the field of analytics with years of pragmatic real-world experience and experience advancing the state of the art. We're so confident in our team as well as our methodology that we back our projects with an industry unique 100% money back guarantee. On the next slide, we've been at this for a while. We've been doing this for nearly 2 decades, 1,300 clients ranging from the Fortune 500 down to the mid-market. You probably recognize more than a couple of those logos up there. We've solved business problems across various industries and functional areas, including the Office of Finance, Sales and Marketing, Manufacturing, Operations, HR, and IT. We're both large enough to meet all of your business analytics needs, ranging from architecture and design to implementation of data lakes, data warehouses, to BI solutions, front-end report and dashboard development, upgrades, migrations, performance optimization, as well as comprehensive training. And yet we're small enough to provide personalized attention. A couple of quick events here, if you want to, and resources here, if you want to expand your knowledge, please visit Centurus.com, Centurus-resources, and bookmark it. It has hundreds of free resources, ranging from webinars like this one to topics on all things BI, to our famous up-to-the-minute, easily consumable, bite-sized blogs. Next slide, upcoming events. We have a great event on connecting to and prepping data in Power BI. We'll be talking about the pros and cons of 4 different data connection scenarios there. So we're going to add to our quiver of Power BI events. We're also going to be adding a Snowflake demo in February. So if you're interested in that, come see us. And in March, we have a really exciting one. We're adding a class on complex aggregations in Tableau, and we'll be giving you a little sample of that in March, so please come visit us there. Along those lines, we do have complete training offerings across Cognos, Power BI, and Tableau. So whether you need corporate training or individual training, we offer everything from customized tailored group sessions to specific one-to-one or one-to-many mentoring, to virtual instructor-led courses, to self-paced e-learning. We offer several different resources here from on our site where you can find product reviews, technical tips, insider viewpoints, product demos, including our analytics connector, and additional upcoming events. So please go take a look at that. All right, and we have about 5 minutes left here, so we'll tuck into the questions at this point. And so, Andy, you can see that there is a ton of great questions up there.
Yeah, let's go.
You
try
want
a few of these. Sure.
Did you have one that you sort of picked out, or do you want me to tee them up for you?
A couple I can see here that be informative. Let's see here. One participant says, so to confirm, you can only create Power BI data flows in Power BI Pro or Power BI Premium. You can't create flows in Power BI Desktop, right? The free version. And yes, that is correct. There is no way of saving the data from Power Query in Power BI Desktop to your desktop. It is the cloud service where that's the case. All right. Another good question here. Do data flows do query folding just like regular Power Query? The answer is yes. So where the data source allows for query folding, just a little explanation of what query folding is. As you go through the step-by-step process, the applied steps in Power Query, that's the M language that gets created. And when you do process this, it will create a query that goes back to the engine. So let's say at the end of all your transformations, the last thing you do is say, oh yeah, I only want 2013 data. So I don't want the other years that are out there. And that might be your last step. But Power Query is not bringing all the data in and then filtering it. What the M language does is a process called query folding, which takes all of its steps, uses that to then create a query that gets sent back to the source so that only the data coming across is 2013 data. So it's an excellent question. And yes, it is the exact same capabilities as Power Query.
We saw a couple of questions on regarding the Power BI gateway. I think there's some confusion around that, right? So the Power BI gateway there's a question, with the cloud solution, can you host the Power BI gateway, and then are data flows an alternative to implementing the gateway? Can you take a stab at that one, or those two?
Yeah, so it is separate technologies, and what you saw today in the demonstration is I hooked into 2 cloud services, which my ID had access to. So I did not need a gateway to go to the Office 365 environment, and I did not need a gateway to go to Azure SQL Server. And that was purposeful. I did not want to have to mess with gateways during the demonstration. In any case, if you wanted to go to an on-prem source, it's the same as you would with Power BI. So data flows also need a gateway if you need to move data from your on-premise environment up into the cloud environment.
Great, yeah, thanks for defining that. I wasn't sure that everybody necessarily knew that. So you still need the gateway, but it could be used to access on-premise data as part of a data flow.
Yes.
There's a question about security being applied to specific data sets or database objects based upon AD roles when accessing cloud data sets. So can you talk a little bit about the application of security? I know that's something that Microsoft does a pretty good job with in terms of AD, and something that they continue to enhance.
So the security is applied at the workspace level, and if you have access to that workspace, you have access to the data sets. And It is all Azure Active Directory when you're up in the cloud environment, right? So you're utilizing, if you have groups that you fit into the organization and your organization has Azure, has say Active Directory on-prem, you can synchronize your Azure Active Directory with your organization's Active Directory, and you can use the groups in allowing the security in the Power BI environment.
Got it. And I think that's where people often pick up the phone and ask us for help is when you're talking about hybrid environments, right? You've got on-prem and cloud, you have different authentication needs, you have different levels of security you need when you're combining different data sources, right? So that's where things get a little murkier. There's a question about paginated reports. You want to tackle that one? Can we do paginated reports?
Sure. So paginated reports, it's a separate technology from a Dataflow. You can paginated reports is it used to be reporting services or the on-prem technologies reporting services. If you have Power BI Premium, you can create a paginated report. It now has the same tool that reporting services had, which is Report Builder, and it's part of your Power BI Premium environment. So you can use it if you have a premium, or you can publish it. You can always create the tool itself is free. You can download it from the portal, which is the Report Builder tool, and you can create reports. But if you want to publish it and share it, right now it's only available in premium.
Great. And then I guess we're at the top of the hour here, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but let's do one more here. There are two questions related to the refresh of data using Dataflows. So one of them was around scheduling an automatic refresh from SharePoint and from a database for the same report. And then a more general question about how Dataflows affect data refresh. So maybe you can ask, maybe you can respond to how does data refresh work with Dataflows, and then maybe specific SharePoint database.
Yeah, with that you can schedule a Dataflow refresh. It is similar to what you saw in a Dataset refresh. You can, if you have premium, you can schedule it to refresh every half hour. It also will, like we showed earlier, the linked data flow. So if a linked data flow was being refreshed, it's actually going to have the other data flow refresh as well. So whatever was dependent upon it downstream gets refreshed, and then a linked data set would be subsequently refreshed, if you will. So you can schedule the refresh. If you have premium, you can do an incremental refresh, and that's a nice thing to have if your data sets are very big. So just bring in the new and changed data by setting up an incremental refresh. That is a Power BI Premium only functionality.
Oh, that's great. So if you could just do me a favor and advance to the last slide there, Andy. So with that, we'll wrap up here. We will respond to the questions we couldn't answer and post those to the web. You can keep going to the next one. And if you have any questions or want to reach out to us, you can reach us at info@centurus.com, or if you like to pick up a phone still, there's a 888 number there. You can reach Andy at kinnear@centurus.com and reach us, via numerous different ways. So we encourage you to go visit our website, give us a call for any of your analytics needs, training needs. And we thank you for joining us today. We want to thank Andy for an excellent presentation, and all of you for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and hopefully learn a little bit about Power BI and its capabilities. We look forward to seeing you at an upcoming Centurus event. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.